Okay, we were back in Republika. We're talking to Ambassador Raul Baja. Um, yung question ko po kanina, sa pananaw po ninyo,
Yeah. The only reason I could think of is immediately after the Second World War, every country is thinking of regional cooperation,
yes,
regional alliances, and so forth. Setting aside, for example, questions of national
interest.
interests, all in the name of regional cooperation and stability. But as years passed, those thoughts, those arrangements, those institutions are now becoming passé.
Mhm.
And each countries are now deciding on the basis of what their national interest is concerned over and above regional interest. And maybe it's about time now that the Philippines should also think along these lines. It has always been my advocacy that national interest trump any consideration of regional cooperation. In our present standoff, for example, with China, the ASEAN position of talking to China as a group has been gradually eroded.
Yes.
And yet here we are that we are insisting on a multilateral regional approach. There are issues between the Philippines and China which are only bilateral issues, and
correct.
the other ASEAN countries do not have a dog in that dog fight. So we also think of bilateral avenues. Anyway, those approaches are not mutually exclusive of each other. And whatever will suit Philippine national interest, we should follow.
Uh, Given a while ago I mentioned the MNLF, the MILF were supported by Malaysia. Following the term of the president, don't you think it's time we also studied our relationship and re-evaluated our relationship with Malaysia, whether, again, on a cost-benefit analysis, we gained more from it?
Foreign policy should always be a living organism.
Yeah.
It should be an evolving relationship. We cannot be put in a straitjacket that because a country is our neighbor, we have maintained good bilateral relations over the years. That should always be the mantra of our relations. A good foreign policy, a good and effective diplomacy must adjust to the current environment, whether security or economic, of the area, and act accordingly.
This brings me to the question. After the Marcos administration, succeeding administrations, maybe with exceptions to President Estrada, who was not able to finish his term but made sure that the MILF surrendered, were overeager, if I might use that term, they were overeager to bend backwards to accommodate Kuala Lumpur or Putrajaya. What is your sense of this? Why? For just purely out of bilateralism, the advantages of bilateralism, or the politics that we do not see?
I think it's more of the latter, the politics which we do not see, and there are also some mischievous thoughts of the politics being practiced by incumbents
Okay.
in the Philippines. As I said, those are only mischievous thoughts, and I don't have basis for those.
Now, if Malaysia, admittedly by the MNLF, and the MNLF also imputes the MILF is also a proxy to this liberation war that is happening in southern Mindanao. If Malaysia is willing to undertake this undeclared form of warfare, what other seductions or mischievous acts or thoughts can they conjure up in Putrajaya in order to somehow push for their own selfish national interest so that it will be served here in the Philippines?
it's now incumbent on Malacanang, on the DFA, on the whole officialdom, to speculate, to have a vision
Uh-huh.
of what, not only what the Philippines should do, but what your neighboring countries may do.
Okay.
It's once in a while, or not really once in a while, perhaps all the time, we should play a game of chess.
Mhm.
You know your moves, but you should also know two or three moves which your opponent may make.
Mr. Ambassador, do you sense, if you're going to describe the foreign policy of our country vis-a-vis Malaysia, are we cautious, or do we feel as if our sense is we owe them a favor as being, third-party intermediator in the peace process?
I think we are cautious. We are over cautious, but we can acknowledge the contribution, the help of Malaysia in the
Uh-huh.
peace process in ways in which we will not be seen as subservient,
Uh-huh.
as ready to abandon other Philippine national interests.
But in the first place, should they be the third-party mediator?
When I was Undersecretary of Foreign Affairs, I wrote a memo. I don't know if it reached Malacanang,
Uh-huh.
that we should stick with Indonesia
Amen.
as a facilitator.
Amen.
And because I said of possible difficulties, of possible conflict in the process, because we have some information that, yeah, Malaysia may have its own national agenda over the area.
Yes.
And again,
And that's very obvious.
yeah, and again, it came to mind the Bangsa Malay of Mahathir then.
Yes. But as the Americans would say, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to be able to see this. The dice is loaded in favor of the dealer.
Yeah.
So why are we, as you said, why are we playing into Malaysia's hands?
That is the $1,000 question now.
$1,000 or $1 billion question, which only our national leaders can answer.
Yes, yes. Again, some mischievous thoughts came in, but let's, for the moment, let's give a benefit of the doubt to those leaders who have slept over our claim that it's all in the name of harmonious bilateral relations or regional cooperation. But eventually, I think events will unfold and reveal whatever background, whatever reason, whatever rational was behind those action or inaction.
MNLF Chair Nur Miswari stated that Malaysia was offering to be the referee in this liberation war between the MILF and the Philippines in return for the Philippines dropping the Sabah territory. Your thoughts as a senior, observer of, international events?
The dramatis personae in this whole thing can say things which will put them in good light, which will advance their cause. So even though we take it with a grain of salt sometimes what they
Yes.
say,
Uh-huh.
we must also explore that somehow there might be a possibility.
There might be a grain of truth to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a visionary leader, a strong leader, must always look into every detail of a particular scenario. For example, my take on this issue of this peace process in Mindanao is it is a domestic issue.
It should be.
Yeah, but of course it's water under the bridge. But we have internationalized the issue. We have invited facilitators, monitors.
We even invited England,
Yeah.
which started the whole problem after all.
So we have opened the whole caboodle to international. I always say international intruders.
We allowed them into the bedroom already.
Yeah.
So,
And I don't know now how to get it out, to get them out of the bedroom because they have seen what our bedroom is.
yes. But
And we have nothing more to hide.
if we're going to draw a line across, the way this administration has handled everything, first, let me ask you, how would you handle the way this government handled the Sabah standoff, or what I call the Sabah homecoming?
You see, the whole thing, I would say, first there was a failure of intelligence because how could, say for example, a group of 300 men could have left the Philippines and could have landed on Sabah without both governments being aware of this? It's a failure of intelligence. And now that there is an allegation that there is a conspiracy, why can't our intelligence community could have nipped that in the bag, in the bud too? There is also a failure of statesmanship because in the context of good bilateral relations, harmonious neighbors, both leaders could have talked more on the phone, free from the glare of media, for example.
You're talking about which leaders?
President Aquino and Prime Minister Rasak.
Okay.
Yeah, and could have between the two of them exchanged views on how to de-escalate there.
Yes.
And
More importantly, I talked with the Sultanate.
yeah, I said that maybe the president was ill-advised, or the president was ill-advised, and maybe because of the initial emotion, he said surrender, no conditions, so forth. He could have said, for example, come home, my people, to your other home, and we will talk about this. That one. And second, I still believe that if the president calls the Sultan, or had the president spoken to the Sultan, this may have been
Change the course of events.
Yeah.
But why did he confront them with arrest? Why did he throw the gauntlet of we're going to throw the book at you, the revised penal code, even the 1987 Constitution?
That escaped me because
He was angered.
maybe he was angered. As I think he was quoted as being confused over the whole Asia.
And he did
The whole
not want
issue.
to convene the national security. Why? In your own reading, should he have convened the national security?
Yes. That in one of my questions posed to me before, he should have convened the National Security Council because whether you pursue or not pursue the claim, it must involve the three branches of the government because they have pronounced themselves on the issue. The executive, the legislative by its resolution, and the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has also pronounced on the issue when it upheld the validity of Republic Act 9522 on the baselines, and there is an obiter dictum there that Sabah is under the dominion and title of the Philippines.
Yes.
So, at this point, the executive cannot unilaterally, for example, renounce the claim
Yes.
or not pursue the claim. It must have the concurrence of both Congress and the judiciary.
That is the sober approach to convene the National Security Council, no? And that is also the mature approach.
Yes, yes,
If I
because
might say that, no?
yeah, because you get the
But
view.
that was not done.
That was not done, and I think former President Ramos also recommended the convening of
Yeah, and he was just told to submit a letter.
a memo. Yeah,
Ah.
I so sometimes you cannot and do not understand also why our president is taking a long time. And I always give him the benefit of the doubt that he is being given the wrong
Proper information.
yeah.
The proper information, but the wrong advice.
Maybe yeah, the proper information, but the wrong advice. Yes, that's why I said the president may have been ill-advised all along during this month-long standoff.
What is your reading? The United Nations Secretary General calls for a ceasefire. The Sultanate, the Kiram clan says, okay, in respect
Yeah.
to the United Nations, we're calling for a ceasefire. Malaysia rejects the ceasefire. The Philippines is silent. How do we read that? How should we read that? As Filipinos, how should we read it? And for Malaysia, how will they read the silence, the disturbing silence of the Philippine government?
The Filipinos, I think, are in wonder, in shock, maybe in shame of how the Philippines is acting over this issue. Malaysia is having dominant, if not control, of the situation. We are playing into the hands of Malaysia. Later on, as I said, if we go to a peaceful settlement of the dispute in the international institution, Malaysia will use our pronouncements, our questionable actions, our inactions against us. And chances are, again, under what I call effectivities of the ICJ, we will lose.
The case.
And that's why in the future, maybe Malaysia will agree to have it decided by the ICJ or any international institution, because they will know that they have not only the physical control but also the force of argument, because they have control over this, and that we must avoid.
You were
now.
quoted as saying that the administration is engaging in political ventriloquism. What did you mean by that?
Yes, because it's almost a consensus that whatever Prime Minister Rasak says or Kuala Lumpur says, we sort of echo by our own words and by our own actions.
Okay. You mean to say there's an extension of Putrajaya in the Pasig?
that,
In direct terms. To be blunt about it.
It's a perception.
Okay.
And in international relations, perception is very important if you want to maintain credibility and respect of the international community. And that we should avoid as a self-respecting independent country.
What do you think of this threats coming out on newspaper that if Prince Raja Muda comes back, he will be arrested along with his 38 followers by the Philippine government?
It's possible because we ourselves have heard Malacanang that they will be arrested, they will be charged, and they will undergo trial. But I always say, yes, maybe, but we don't have to make that in public.
Okay.
Our first priority would be protection over prosecution.
How about our non-recovery of the bodies, which the Malaysians gave us 3 days? Why were we disinterested to recover those bodies?
I don't know, but I always say that when we requested once or twice, or maybe thrice, to have full access,
We were denied.
we were denied. And this is a violation of the Vienna Convention on
But in this
Consular
case,
Relations.
they were willing to give us access to the bodies, if I'm not mistaken. They were willing to give us the cadavers.
In the last, I think the last days already. But our request for access is more for humanitarian purposes of those who are still alive.
Okay. How do you read the timing of the celebration of the Jabida anniversary?
There's a message there
Meaning,
that it can go both ways. That the Jabida massacre should have succeeded,
or
or
we celebrate that it failed.
it failed. Yeah, depending on what frame of mind one is.
The protracted clashes in Sabah, at the end of the day, if this continues for another month, the next 6 months, the next year, will it be good for the Philippine claim over the territory or not?
In the sense that we are now disturbing these so-called acts of effectivities of Malaysia. It's a form of protest. It's a form of indication that Malaysia has not been occupying the area for a number of times without protest. Another silver lining of this standoff is that now the international community is aware, after having been forgotten for 5 decades, that the Philippines has a claim on Sabah.
Standing. Last 20 seconds. Does the payment of the pajak, is that exhibit 1 of the disturbance of the so-called exercise of, effectivities of Malaysia over Sabah?
That payment of whether it's session money or rent money is not that relevant or
To the effectivities.
to the effectivities. It's what, for example, China is doing now in South China Sea. They are exercising effectivities by their laws, by their patrols, by their exercises. And if we do not take care, then
But in this case, Malaysia is paying some form of monetary consideration. Is that not an acknowledgement that they do not have full control over Sabah?
no, it's because they always call it a session payment.
Okay.
And if the court will only rely on that one, we will lose.
Okay.
Because acts of sovereignty are very important in matters of territorial disputes.
Okay. Well, we'd like to thank Ambassador Lauro Baja for the full hour that he was with us. We hope to have him again, especially if this brewing problem will boil over, and we will see how events will turn up. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Eric. I hope that this exchange of views between us will somehow migrate to those who are in a position to decide the issue, and they consider maybe some of the merits and validity of our views.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, I hope the members and the cabinet members of the President will grow some gray hair. This has been Erik Espina. Palagi pong nagsasabi sa inyo, magmasid, makialam, higit sa lahat ay manindigan. Dahil wala pong magmamahal sa Pilipino kung hindi ang Pilipino. Daghang salamat, maayong gabi kaninyong tanan.